You've got a pre-flop chart. You've studied it. You know your RFI ranges by position, your 3-bet ranges, and your calling ranges. You have put in the work, and you're still bleeding. Here's the problem. The chart wasn't built for an opponent who doesn't exist at your table. This is Vinton Poker, precision in, profits out. I'm Vinton, and I specialize in one thing: transforming everyday players into highly profitable exploitative forces at the live tables. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why your preflop chart is costing you money and give you 3 input frameworks you can run at the table tonight to replace it. Let's get into it. Let's start with the one thing that's costing you money every single orbit. That balance is protection. You've internalized the idea that if you play a theoretically sound, balanced range pre-flop, open the right hands at the right frequencies, 3-bet with the right ratios of value to bluffs, call with the right mix, you're safe, you're unexploitable, you're playing correct poker. And against the solver, against a theoretical opponent running perfectly balanced ranges and exploiting every single deviation you make with surgical precision, that's true. Balance is protection. But look around the table. Look who's actually doing that. The guy in seat 3 who limps every hand from every position, he calls off 40% of his stack with bottom pair because he had a feeling. The woman in seat 7, who 3-bets only aces or kings, folds to every continuation bet and telegraphs her entire range with sizing tells that you could read from across the room. The recreational player who drove 2 hours to be here tonight, who's had a couple of drinks, who's not running GTO engine in his head, he's just running hope. Those are not theoretical opponents. These are actual people sitting across from you right now. And when you play balanced ranges into them, you're not protecting yourself. You're destroying EV systematically every single orbit. This is what I call playing the wrong opponent. It's the most expensive structural mistake I see in live cash games because it's invisible. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like discipline. Let me show you exactly what this costs. You're in the cutoff. It folds to you. Standard GTO range opens roughly 35 to 40% of the hands from that position. Fine. But the big blind is a player who defends way too wide, calling 50 to 55% of raises because he hates folding. And he plays fit or fold post flop. He connects and pays you off, or he misses and gives up. He almost never floats, almost never check raises as bluff, almost never runs a multi-street bluff. Against that player, your range doesn't need to be balanced. It needs value density. You want hands that dominate his calling range and play well in bloated pots. You want to drop the hands that rely on fold equity post-flop because he's not giving you that fold equity, he's calling. Now flip it. There's a player in seat 2 to your left who is a chronic overfolder. He 3-bets light and then surrenders to any resistance. Folds to continuation bets north of 75% of the time. Against him, your pre-flop range should be wider, not tighter. You want to be in pots with them because you're going to win a disproportionate share of them post-flop through pure pressure, not through showdown equity. Neither one of those adjustments exist on a pre-flop chart. A chart can't know who's sitting in seat 3 tonight. Here's a concrete number to anchor this for you. A player has been 3-betting you repeatedly for the last 45 minutes. He's using it as a move, not as a strategic range. When you 4-bet into him, he folds a lot. Let's say his 3-bet fold frequency against 4-bets is 65%. That's not unusual for a recreational player who 3-bets as power play without thinking it through about what happens next. For a 4-bet bluff to break even when you're 4-betting to roughly 2.2 times the 3-bet, you need it to work roughly about 45% of the times. At 65% fold frequency, you're clearing that threshold by a wide margin, and that's a pure print. But a GTO chart might tell you to fold ace-jack offsuit to a 3-bet from that position. The chart doesn't know his fold frequency. You do. And if you fold because the chart says fold, you just left money on the table. That's not discipline. That's just data blindness. Here's where it gets interesting, because it isn't just a strategy mistake. It's also a psychological reason why people cling to charts, even when the charts are wrong for the table. The charts feel safe. They externalize the decision. If you play the chart and lose, it wasn't your fault. You played correctly. If you deviate from the chart and lose, that's on you. You made the judgment call. If it went wrong, that's uncomfortable. That's ego exposure. So what players do unconsciously is to use charts as a shield, not against bad opponents, against accountability. The problem is that accountability is exactly what separates a losing player from a winning one. The willingness to say, I'm going to make a specific read on this specific human being and act on it and own the result. That's the skill. That's where the edge lives. The chart can't do that. The chart doesn't know the guy in seat 5 who's been 3-betting every time you open for the last 45 minutes. You do. And that information has monetary value, but only if you act on it. This is the core diagnostic, the 4 pillars of the Vinton framework, my framework, and especially the PIPO decision engine. They are built around one foundational premise. The correct decision is always a function of the specific opponent in front of you, not a theoretical average opponent. Precision in means you're feeding the right inputs, actual reads, actual tendencies, actual behavioral data into every decision. Profits out is the output of that precision. When you substitute a chart for actual observation, you have broken the input side of the equation, of the engine. You're running on garbage data, and the market punishes that with 100% efficiency. So let me give you the practical alternative. I'm not telling you to throw out structure. Structure matters, but it has to be adaptive structure, not a static structure. Think of your pre-flop charts as a baseline, not a prescription. It tells you the theoretical floor, the hands that are profitable against an average field. Your job at the table is to adjust up or down from that baseline based on 3 specific inputs. Input number 1, the tendencies of the players most likely to be in the pot with you. Are they a caller or folder? Aggressive post-flop or passive? Do they defend wide and play fit or fold, or do they defend tight and play back hard when they connect? Each profile changes the value of different hand types significantly. A hand that relies on fold equity post-flop loses value against a calling station. A hand that plays well in multi-way pots gains value when you're going to be called in multiple spots. These are not small adjustments. They are compounded across every hand you play with that player. Input number 2, positional dynamic relative to those players. Being in position on a calling station is worth more than being in position on a tight aggressive player, because you're going to extract more streets of value and face less resistance. That expands your profitable opening range. Being out of position against a player who barrels relentlessly on scary boards is a different calculation entirely, one that argues for tightening not because of theoretical balance, but because of specific post-flop pressure you're going to face. Input number 3, your current table image and recent history. If you've been opening wide and getting called down, your value hands are worth more and your bluffs are worth less right now. If you've been card dead and folding for 2 hours, Your 3-bet bluffs have more fold equity than usual because you look tight. Your range is not just about your cards. It's about what your opponents believe about your cards. That's a live variable. A chart cannot track it. You have to. When you integrate those 3 inputs into every pre-flop decision, you're not playing a chart. You're playing the table. That's a different game entirely. And that game is where the money is. One thing I want to be direct about, because I see this confusion constantly. None of this is an argument against studying theory. It's not an argument against solver or GTO fundamentals. Understanding the theoretical baseline is what makes your deviations meaningful. If you don't know what the correct balance range looks like, you don't know how far to deviate or in which direction or even why. Theory is the foundation, but theory deployed without a specific context is a tool being used in the wrong application. A hammer is a good tool, but if you're trying to drive a screw, the fact that it's a good hammer is completely irrelevant. You've got the wrong tool for the job. Your chart is also a good tool, but if you're playing it against a player whose tendencies make it systematically wrong for this specific spot, the quality of the chart doesn't save you. Here's the last thing I want to leave you with. It's the hardest part to internalize. Playing exploitatively, actually deviating from the chart based on reads, means you will sometimes be wrong. You will make a read, adjust your range, and the opponent will do something you did not expect. You'll 4-bet bluff a player you read as a light 3-better, and then he'll snap you off with kings. That'll happen. It's inevitable. And in that moment, the chart will feel like safety. You'll think, I should have played the chart. Don't let that moment lie to you. The question is never whether the outcome was good. The question is whether the decision was sound given the information you had. If your read was reasonable, your adjustment was mathematically grounded, and the play was positive EV against his likely range, this was the right play. The cards fell wrong. That's variance. That's the cost of playing in an environment where information is imperfect and the outcomes are probabilistic. What you cannot afford is to let that one bad outcome take you back into the false security of playing a chart against opponents who will systematically exploit your predictability. The players at your table who are consistently winning are not playing the chart. They are playing you. Specifically, they have read your tendencies, your sizing patterns, your fold frequencies. They're adjusting to you in real time. The question is, are you going to do the same thing back to them? The chart is not your edge. Your ability to read the specific humans at your table and translate those reads into precise range adjustments, that's your edge. Build it deliberately. Before you go, when was the last time you consciously deviated from your default pre-flop ranges because of a specific read on a specific opponent? What happened? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one of them. If you want to know exactly where your pre-flop decisions are bleeding, not in theory, but in your actual game, go to audit.vintonpoker.com and take the free Leak Hunter diagnostic, a thorough assessment of your game. The link is in the description also. The diagnostic is absolutely free. It's targeted. It will show you exactly the specific spots where your ranges are misaligned with the players you're actually facing. Go use it. Audit.vintonpoker.com. I'm Vinton, and I'll see you in the next one.